Since the beginning of ancestral wisdom, it has been said that fear is not born from the world, but from the way we see it. It is like a shadow projected on the wall of the mind, and the more light it sheds, the more one realizes that there is nothing there. It is spiritual perception distorted by trauma, frozen emotional memories, and inherited beliefs. Spiritual energy, when disorganized, emits frequencies that attract situations that seem to justify fear. But deep down, it's just the old echo of something that still needs to be seen. Most people believe that they feel fear because of external circumstances. But in reality, fear arises from the unconscious way in which we interpret these experiences. A child who is told that it is not safe can carry this vibration into adulthood, reacting with anxiety to any new situation. The body, as a spiritual channel, keeps these marks, and it responds with tremors, sweating, and tension. The energetic presence is altered, and everything around begins to feel like a threat. It is no coincidence that spiritually sensitive people are most affected by inexplicable fears. They capture subtle frequencies, unspoken vibrations, energies that circulate in the invisible. When they don't know how to filter this, fear becomes a constant alarm, taking them off track and away from their connection with the invisible. Practical esotericism is not about escaping these sensations, but understanding them with lucidity and compassion. Fear, in this context, is a messenger, not a villain. To begin dissolving this illusion, the first step is to honestly name your fears. Saying, "I'm afraid of being rejected, I'm afraid of not being good enough," already breaks the spell. This appointment is an energetic key that begins to transform the internal vibration. The simple act of writing these fears on paper and burning them as a liberation ritual already moves invisible mountains. Popular mysticism has always used these gestures as symbols of healing and transformation. Another essential point is to realize that fear does not come from the present. It's always a reflection of something that once was, that left marks. The spiritual energy we carry is like a mirror. It reflects out everything that is unresolved inside. Therefore, the work begins with looking inward, with courage and compassion. Those who cultivate spiritual perception learn to recognize when fear is not theirs, but inherited, collective, or projected by others. There is a simple but powerful exercise. When you feel afraid, ask yourself, is this real now, or is it just a memory from the past disguised as the present? This question opens portals of consciousness. It allows the frequency to return to balance and the vibration to rise with more presence. It is at this time that ancestral wisdom acts, reminding us that fear is like fog. It only seems real while you are immersed in it. Leaving a little, you see that it has no substance, and you know what's most curious? The more you try to avoid fear, the more it grows. This is because it feeds on escape. It's like a spiritual dog guarding a sacred door. If you run, it barks. If you stop, breathe, and look into his eyes, he silences. The body, as a spiritual channel, understands this intuitively, but the mind needs to relearn. Here comes the importance of connecting with the invisible, listening to what is not said, feeling what is not visible, trusting what is not logical. And it is precisely there, at that point where fear seems to dominate everything, that your true role emerges, that of guardian of a great treasure. The soul feels that behind the fear there is a portal, and it is at this point that the next step of the journey begins. Fear, as strange as it may seem, is not an enemy. He is a symbolic guardian, the dragon at the head of the treasure. Every true spiritual journey, from ancient shamans to alchemical masters, passes through this same portal. Spiritual energy condensed in the form of fear guards the threshold between the current version of the person and their true self. That powerful, awakened, invincible version that only emerges when you cross the shadow with courage. Ancestral. Wisdom teaches that before any initiation, the initiate needs to face his or her greatest fear. This is frequent in myths. Perseus faces Medusa, Moses faces the desert, Jesus faces the devil. All these archetypes show us that fear is an initiatory door. The vibration changes when the person understands this and stops avoiding confrontation. Spiritual perception begins to expand, and consciousness sees fear not as an end, but as a passage. In practice, fear often appears as procrastination, sudden tiredness, anxiety, mental confusion. These symptoms are not failures. They are internal, alarms signaling that we are close to a vibrational rupture. When someone approaches a spiritual leap, it is natural for fear to intensify. It manifests itself as the last test before change. The body as a spiritual channel agitates because it is about to access a new frequency. This is the time to apply practical esotericism. Create an altar with symbols of courage, write letters to your fears, or repeat affirmations of power like, "I am stronger than any shadow." These are simple acts, but with immense vibrational force. They are symbolic actions that speak the language of the soul. And the soul understands symbols more than words. It responds to intention, to energetic presence, to ritual. In some traditions of popular mysticism, it is recommended to talk to fear as if it were an entity. And why are you here? What do you want to show me? This practice completely transforms the relationship with the shadow. Fear stops being a monster and becomes a master. It reveals patterns, traumas, and blockages that were hidden, but that need to be looked at with love and clarity. This self-talk changes everything. There is a secret that almost no one tells you. Fear protects your most powerful gift. It's as if he were saying, only those who are ready to use this force responsibly will pass. And that's why so many run away. But those who stay, those who cross over, discover a level of internal energy they never imagined they possessed. The connection with the invisible deepens, the signs intensify, and life begins to respond with synchronicities. The big turning point happens when the person understands that fear does not need to be overcome, just crossed. It is not about becoming someone without fear, but someone who walks with it, consciously and vibrationally aligned. It is a spiritual dance where fear guides but does not control. The energetic presence becomes more stable, thoughts clearer, and the soul freer. It is the birth of a new way of being, and when you go through this crossing, something changes in your eyes. There is a brightness, a firmness, a peace that cannot be explained. The dragon doesn't disappear, it bows, and behind it there is a new door. A door sealed by ancient codes which only the wise know, and it is through this crack that the teachings of ancestral traditions are revealed. From the Vedas in India to Christian mystical texts from the desert, fear has always been understood as a spiritual energy that distorts the perception of reality. It is no wonder that the ancient scriptures said "fear not" as one of the most recurring commandments, because they knew fear lowers the frequency, separates the being from its divine origin. Ancestral wisdom treats fear not as punishment, but as an illusion to be transmuted with awareness and spiritual practice. The Egyptians, for example, saw fear as part of the soul's initiation before reaching the Hall of Ma'at. The heart needed to be light, free from guilt, hatred, and fear. In Hermeticism, fear was associated with ignorance about the real nature of the self. Therefore, studying, contemplating, and meditating was part of the path to dissolving fear. The internal energy changed as the mind was illuminated, and so the body became a purer channel of the divine presence. In Taoism, fear is proof that the vital energy is out of alignment. When qi or prana flows naturally, fear vanishes like smoke in the wind. Practical Chinese esotericism teaches breathing exercises, gentle movements, and visualization practices to rebalance this flow. These are simple practices that can be done when waking up or before going to sleep, and they have a direct effect on the nervous system and the vibrational field. Indigenous cultures understand fear as a spirit that needs to be welcomed. In many shamanic rituals, fear is evoked, danced, chanted, and then released with gratitude. This completely changes spiritual perception. Fear stops being something that is hidden and becomes something that is honored, because it always points to learning, and where there is learning, there is soul growth. Jesus spoke about fear with profound clarity. When the storm had calmed, he asked, "Why are you so afraid, you of little faith?" He did not rebuke fear, but the lack of faith that fueled it. This shows us that fear grows where faith falls asleep. The vibration of faith dispels fear like light dispels darkness. Therefore, practices such as prayer, meditation, and reading sacred texts elevate the energetic presence and silence the noises of fear. In Kabbalah, fear is linked to the sephira of Gevurah, discipline, restriction. When misunderstood, this energy turns into rigidity and fear of the unknown. But when balanced with love and compassion, it becomes inner strength. Kabbalistic study shows that every fear carries a hidden code, a specific lesson for the soul. Understanding it means deciphering this code and transmuting lead into gold, literally spiritual alchemy. What all these traditions have in common is the certainty that fear should not be suppressed, but illuminated. Each offers unique tools, but they all point to the same path: awareness and integration. And when this happens, spiritual energy rises, perception is refined, and the body vibrates in a different tone. And this new tone begins to touch everything around with more presence. And it is from these ancient practices that we have reached the moment of bringing this wisdom to modern everyday life. After all, how can you transform fear into power with accessible and practical methods? Transforming fear into power is one of the greatest magics of practical esotericism. It's not about pretending you don't feel fear, but about creating space to feel it consciously. The first tool is breathing. Yes, the simple act of breathing with presence activates the spiritual energy that sleeps in the body. Inhale deeply, counting to 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5. This technique calms the nervous system and realigns the internal frequency. Another ancient method is to name the fear. It seems too simple, but it is profoundly transformative. When you say out loud, "I'm afraid of failing," the brain begins to take the fear out of the shadow and into the light. Writing this fear down on paper and creating a symbolic letter for it is a powerful exercise. The energetic presence reorganizes itself because the unconscious understands that it is being heard. The body, as a spiritual channel, responds to this gesture with relief. Art is also a powerful channel of transmutation. Painting, singing, dancing, fear. These are ways to release stagnant spiritual energy. In popular mysticism, it is common to use dance as a purification ritual. When you move your body, your emotion moves. And since emotion is energy in motion, fear begins to dissolve. A drum, a candle, a song, and the invisible begins to move. It is healing in the form of expression. Gratitude is another sacred antidote. It is impossible to feel fear and gratitude at the same time. When you are grateful, the vibration changes completely. Therefore, a simple practice is to write down every night 5 things you are grateful for that day, even if small. This elevates spiritual perception and prepares the energy field to receive more light. It's like exchanging the dark lens for a golden lens, vibrationally lighter. Faith does not have to be religious. It can be trust in the flow of life, in the invisible that sustains us. When you repeat, like a mantra, "Everything is being organized in my favor," Something in the field begins to vibrate differently. The frequency changes, the soul listens, internal energy expands, and fear, like a cloud, begins to lose strength. This type of affirmation, repeated with intention, is a vibrational key. Baths with herbs such as rosemary, lavender, or basil are also practices of practical esotericism to cleanse the energetic residues of fear. Place the herbs in hot water, leave to infuse for 20 minutes, wait for it to cool and throw it from the neck down after bathing. As you do this, visualize the fear flowing away and being washed away. This aligns the body with nature and strengthens the connection with the invisible. Creative visualization is another effective method. Imagine yourself inside a golden bubble where nothing external can hurt you. See fear as smoke being absorbed by this bubble and transmuted into light. This exercise activates spiritual perception and teaches the energy body to respond differently. It's vibrational training, and over time, fear loses its hold on the mind. As you master these methods, something begins to reveal itself. Fear was not a punishment, but an invitation. An invitation to look within, awaken dormant gifts, and reconnect with ancestral forces. And it is at this point that the alchemical process of the soul comes into play. In spiritual alchemy, fear is the lead, dense, dark, seemingly useless. But the alchemist knows that this lead contains hidden gold. The human soul is a living laboratory, and practical esotericism teaches how to carry out this transformation with consciousness. Every time you face fear with presence, the inner fire ignites. And it is this fire that begins to transmute pain into wisdom, chaos into clarity, shadow into light. The first stage is nigredo, the darkness of the soul. It's the moment when everything seems lost, where fear screams the loudest. But it is there that the raw material for transformation reveals itself. When the person accepts this plunge without victimizing themselves, the real work begins. Spiritual energy is activated in suffering as long as it is lived with intention and awareness. It's like the masters said, only in the darkness. Can you see the inner light? Then comes albedo, lightning. The soul begins to understand the patterns, to recognize the reason for fear, to forgive the past. It is a vibrational purification process. Spiritual perception expands. The body as a spiritual channel feels lighter, more intuition, more connection with the invisible. Meditations, conscious fasting, prayers, and visualizations help at this stage. Everything that cleans, whitens. Everything that purifies, reveals. In rubedo, the final stage, gold emerges. Fear is transmuted into courage, presence, compassion. The being is reborn with a new vibration. The internal energy pulses with strength and serenity at the same time. The person becomes an alchemist of their own life. You no longer react to external stimuli with desperation, but with clarity. You know that everything that comes from the world is a reflection of what vibrates inside. A practical example of emotional alchemy. Feel angry, and instead of exploding, go for a walk. Breathe, write, meditate. By processing the fear that lies behind the anger, you will be making gold with the hands of awareness. This is practical esotericism. This is ancient wisdom in action. Fear becomes strength, pain becomes a path, life becomes a temple. And those who dedicate themselves to this process activate spiritual codes that were sleeping inside their chest. Soul alchemy also requires patience. It's not quick magic. It is a subtle but powerful process. Popular mysticism teaches that one should trust small signs, a dream, a butterfly, a sudden intuition. These are signs that the transformation is happening. Spiritual perception refines, senses expand. It's as if the world began to speak a new language. And the most beautiful? This alchemy does not need to be done in distant temples or expensive retreats. It can happen in the silence of the room, in daily practice, at the improvised altar with a candle and a crystal. The body, when treated as a spiritual channel, responds with revelations. The energetic presence changes the field and new opportunities appear. It all starts within, and everything inside responds with gold when fear becomes master. It is in this alchemical state that we begin to live more lightly. But the soul, now more awakened, knows that it needs to keep that fire burning. And so, it's time for daily practices. True freedom from fear happens in everyday life, in small gestures. It is not a single meditation that changes everything, but the constancy of practices that purify the vibrational field. Spiritual energy responds to routine. It needs frequency. Just as you brush your teeth every day, you should also take care of your soul with the same care. Because fear infiltrates the cracks of inattention in routines that forget the invisible. An essential practice is energy cleansing. It can be done with an herbal bath every Friday, as popular mysticism dictates. Basil for clarity, rosemary for spiritual strength, rue for breaking miasms. Throwing this bath from the neck down, while saying, "I release everything that doesn't belong to me," already reprograms the internal energy. The body, as a spiritual channel, thanks you, and the frequency starts to rise. Another practice is to keep the environment energetically clean. Rooms full of junk, old papers, broken objects accumulate fear. Everything is vibration, and the invisible feels it. Therefore, lighting incense in the morning, ringing a Tibetan bell, or simply opening the windows and letting the sun in already changes the field. This is practical esotericism in its most accessible form. It does not require blind faith, just attention and energetic presence. Symbolic actions are also fundamental. Are you afraid of speaking in public? Record an audio with your voice and publish it in a group of friends. Are you afraid of being judged? Write an authentic text and post it. These are gestures that defy fear and signal to the universe that you are ready to grow. Every small action moves energy, and where there is movement, there is healing. Ancestral wisdom has always worked with these small rituals. 2-minute meditation already makes a difference. Close your eyes, breathe, visualize a golden light surrounding your body. Repeat, "I am protected, I am guided, I am free from fear." It may seem simple, but it is profoundly powerful. The vibration responds immediately, and the more it is repeated, the more the spiritual field strengthens. It's like sharpening an invisible sword every day. Thanking fear before letting it go is a noble gesture. Saying, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but now I choose to walk with confidence," completely changes your relationship with him. This activates a new spiritual perception where fear is no longer the enemy, but part of the process. The body understands. The soul blooms. Fear does not disappear, but it loses its power to paralyze. It dissolves with respect, not violence. It's also recommended to use anchoring objects, a protective necklace, a stone such as black tourmaline or amethyst, a personal symbol. These items do not have power in and of themselves. The power lies in the intention with which they are used. They remind the mind of its strength. And the more the mind is remembered, the more the unconscious reprograms itself. This creates a vibrational shield that repels fear and attracts trust. And when applying all of this, something changes. Fear becomes a visitor, not a resident. He may even knock on the door, but you know how to welcome him and let him go. And in that quiet steadfastness, the soul begins to feel something new, an approaching force. An invincibility that does not scream, but that shines from within. Being invincible does not mean never being afraid. It means being bigger than him. It's acting even when you're trembling. It's speaking even with a broken voice. It's following, even when everything inside wants to stop. True invincibility is spiritual. It comes from an internal energy that was honed in pain, in doubt, in surrender. And this strength cannot be bought. It cannot be inherited. It is built, day after day, with energetic presence and conscious choice. Truly invincible people have something in common: vibrational authenticity. They don't try to appear strong, they are, because they've already gone to rock bottom and come back with wisdom. Their spiritual perception is sharp. They feel it before they know it, intuit before deciding, and they trust themselves more than any external opinion. This is connection with the invisible in its purest state. It is faith embedded in the heart. This invincibility does not manifest itself with arrogance, but with serenity. He's the type of person who walks into a room and everything goes silent. Spiritual energy speaks for it, and it's not magic, it's practice. It is practical esotericism applied with discipline, love, and courage. He is the one who made the soul his temple and fear his master. These people inspire, and more than that, they transform the vibration of those around them. In the modern world, being invincible is an act of rebellion. Rebellion against media fear, against panic control, against the culture of insecurity. When you choose to act with love even in the midst of chaos, the universe responds. Synchronicities arise, doors open, the invisible conspires in favor. Because the universe supports those who vibrate in the inner truth. This is spiritual law. This is ancient wisdom in motion. And if you are reading these words today, it is because something inside you has already started to move. Maybe you don't feel ready, but no one does. The secret is to start anyway. Take one step, then another and another, and one day, without realizing it, you will be halfway there, where fear no longer commands but only observes, where the heart beats loudest, where the soul remembers, I was born to be free. To be invincible is to walk with faith while the world trembles. It's carrying an internal silence that says, nothing can shake me. It's trusting your own light, even when everything gets dark. This is energetic presence. It is refined spiritual strength. It is the body aligned with the soul, and the soul at peace with its journey. It is the result of a process, a choice, and a memory. You were never alone. True invincibility is simple. It's saying no when you want to say no. It's leaving where your soul doesn't vibrate. It's embracing those who resonate with your essence. These are small gestures that support an immense field, and in this field, fear loses territory. And the light finally reigns, not out of ego, but for mission, by destiny. And now, after having gone through all these spiritual keys, one question remains. What if you could eliminate fear from your mind forever? Let's go back to the beginning, where it all starts with a decision.